It's your boy Marlo, and we back with another video. Putin and Ukraine is still, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I think Ukraine did the last attack, and I think this is what we about to be talking about. So let's see what they're talking about, y'all.
New satellite images into Outfront showing the extent of the damage caused by a massive Ukrainian operation that took a year and a half to plan against air bases deep inside Russia. One Russian military blogger calling it Russia's Pearl Harbor. And the Ukrainian government says that the drone attacks damaged more than a third of Russia's strategic bombers. The operation caused more than $7 billion, and it did hit air bases across Russia. Now, one attack happened 2,800 miles from Ukraine's border. So let's just put that up on a map just to make this very clear. That is closer to Japan than it is to Kyiv. So you're talking about Tokyo, not Kyiv. Just to think about what it would take to pull that off. Well, what did it take? The Ukrainian President Zelensky says 117 drones were used, and that these drones were covertly smuggled into Russia inside mobile homes that were transported on trucks and then placed near the air bases. The Trump administration official tells CNN, and this is really crucial, the United States was not given a heads up about the operation. That is stunning in and of itself. And as for Putin, it's a major embarrassment, to say the very least. And as Russian media analyst Julia Davis points out, there is utter disbelief and also shame tonight on Russian state television.
How did these trucks get through? Who has inspected them? How did you pass the inspection points? The weigh-ins? How did it happen?
A level of frustration and anger there expressed by now extremely familiar faces on Russian state television, Putin propaganda supporters. Out front now, Vladimir Milov, a former deputy minister of energy in Russia, served under Vladimir Putin. Obviously, then, of course, you resigned. Vladimir, so let me just ask you from the perspective of, when you hear that on Russian state, how did those trucks get in? How did they get through the waypoints? That frustration you hear there. How big of an embarrassment is this for Putin?
Good evening, Erin. Great to be with you again. It is big indeed enough, but this is not the first time, because we just had a 9-month occupation of the part of the Kursk region by Ukrainian troops, nearly ended, and that was a major setback to Putin. And, Russian airports, Moscow area airports getting disrupted, if not daily, at least weekly, because of permanent Ukrainian attacks of Russian military industry facilities with drones. Today, I heard on the air that one of the executives of the Emirates Airlines said that they might be reconsidering the whole schedule of flights to Moscow because of these permanent disruptions. So these setbacks now come like nearly daily. This is just another example of total failure of counterintelligence, failure to protect strategic long-range aircraft and so on. Well, what I hear from Moscow is that people are barely surprised by all these multiple failures. It shows that Putin's system is not as strong as it wants to seem from the outset.
Well, unless he wants out to think that.
Very important, because obviously on state television, I think the right word to describe the sentiment is fury, right? There is fury. They are angry. There's one former KGB agent who was on saying that because of this, Ukraine essentially should be obliterated. Take a listen.
It can be compensated only with them being preventively knocked out, down to nothing. There is no other way.
So what do you think Putin does here?
Well, fury is the right word, but what I don't hear in all these comments is surprise. People are really not surprised, because everybody is more or less aware that Putin's system is in a lot of ways dysfunctional. Clearly, Putin would retaliate again with these barbaric bombardments of Ukrainian peaceful cities, as we saw in the past years, months, and weeks. There's no other way to go, because Russia does not have the capacity to, like, say, launch a massive military offensive. They don't have enough personnel for it. So
Putin don't care
they'll
what
probably
President
resort
Trump
to
say.
barbaric bombardments yet
They better
again.
do something.
I mean, there are other options, like people talk about potential use of nuclear weapons and so on. I don't think that this is
that's
on the
crazy
table.
that he said that, because that's what I'm thinking. I think it might play out like that. Like, to end that war is gonna be some type of nuke or something, I believe. But I don't think that Ukraine got a big enough nuke to stop Russia. I don't think. I'm not big on nuclear weapons and how they used and how big the radius is, but I don't think they got a big enough nuke for it.
But again, Putin had shown many times that he's resorting to barbarity and revenge after Ukrainians really do something sensitive to his military.
So now to what the Russian military blogger said when he called it Russia's Pearl Harbor. Now, obviously, Pearl Harbor was an unprovoked attack on the United States. This is obviously Ukraine trying to take out the bombers that are bombing Ukraine on a regular basis. So in that sense, it's different. But you're talking about the scale of what happened when he refers to Pearl Harbor, presumably. And Zelensky says that operatives planned this, that the planning happened directly next to an office of Russia's intelligence services, right? So they did it right next door and nobody picked up on it. And they worked on it for over a year. So to the point you made about, Russia, Putin's status inside Russia, does this weaken him domestically?
Not immediately, but step by step, brick by brick, because again, when you have so many failures on all fronts, begin with economy or so much promised import substitution, we will soon have no planes to fly on because the Boeings and Airbuses are getting worn out and there is no maintenance because of the sanctions and so on. So all of these things will come together at one point. Probably there will be no immediate consequences after setbacks like this. Yeah. But then again, you see the reaction. People are asking questions, how come? How this is all possible? We thought that we're like this mighty superpower, which at the end of the day have all their strategic bombers unprotected. Is that the superpower we imagined? So sooner or later, I remember, my childhood years in the 80s, when all these questions about the inefficiency of the Soviet government came together at one point, and this became louder and louder in the end.
For Glasnost. Vladimir Milov, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. As always, it is good to see you. I know it's late where you are. I want to go now to retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. He was the commanding general for the U.S. Army in Europe, also late where you are tonight, General. So how significant do you think these strikes by Ukraine are right now against Putin?
Well, of course, the most significant thing immediately is a reduction in Russia's ability to kill innocent Ukrainian citizens. These bombers were how Russia was launching cruise missiles against Ukrainian cities. So immediate reduction in that capability. But then I like how Vladimir just described, the psychological impact on Russia as people begin to realize that they are not invulnerable. And this will put pressure on the Putin regime.
So what does it say to you? And I mentioned this right before I brought Vladimir into the conversation. Ukraine did not tell the United States about these strikes, which is hugely significant. And I can't say exactly, did the U.S. never have any inkling? I mean, the planning's been going on for over a year, right? So that would predate Trump even winning the election. So I don't know if the U.S. knew nothing ever about anything even being thought about, but certainly we know they didn't know about these strikes at this time. What does that say to you?
Well, it tells me that, of course, Ukrainians do not trust the Trump administration. I mean, they're pretty certain, based on what they've seen happening and coming from the Trump administration, that if they had shared or given a heads up, that this would have been leaked or handed over somehow. If not stopped. And so I think.
And I can kind of see where they coming from with that not trusting, because, I guess the relationship that Trump and Putin have. So I can kind of get why they probably didn't tell us, and, but, I feel like we gave them too much money to not tell us what y'all better do with our money.
Have any trust there. And then also, even if they did trust the White House, they would have been concerned about this being discussed over some signal chat group, inside the administration. And so this is why this trust about who runs our intelligence, why this trust is so important.
So obviously you're joining from Germany tonight, and you were the commanding general for the U.S. Army in Europe. So I know that you know what it means when the German defense chief goes on television, as he did today with the BBC, and talked about the possibility of Putin attacking a member of NATO perhaps soon. Here's what he said.
I think it's a very serious threat. If you ask me now, is this a guarantee that's not earlier than 2029? I would say no, it's not. So we must be able to fight tonight.
Must be able to fight tonight, and that an attack of Putin on NATO could come in the next few years. Do you think that's realistic?
Of course, what General Breuer is trying to do is help change the culture inside Germany and the German Bundeswehr about what we in the U.S. military call readiness, of preparation to be ready to fight tonight, having your trained, your equipment works, all of that. And General Breuer is leading that effort. But he also is repeating what the British defense minister has said and other European leaders, talking about almost the inevitability that Russia plans to attack a NATO country, not in the way that they've attacked Ukraine, but certainly they're going to test NATO, especially if they think that the U.S. is not going to be a reliable ally. Can the alliance respond to an attack of some sort? Because Russia's objective has always been to put a wedge between Europe and the United States and to break apart the alliance.
General Hodges, thank you so much. I appreciate your time tonight.
What we got to remember is, Russia, I feel like Putin just gonna do whatever he want. He feel like he got the upper hand when I feel like if he come messing with us, he don't got the upper hand no more. But we're gonna continue to look at videos and we just gonna stay on top of it, to see if he do attack somebody from NATO or, if nuclear weapons are in a talk between Ukraine and Russia. So stay with me, like and subscribe. And like I always say, God bless you.